Hi guys, welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to sew a pencil dress with side ruffles and a balloon sleeve. For this dress, I use 4 yards of fabric. However, you can use 3 yards or more depending on how full you want the sleeve to be. To start, I'm going to be folding my paper and I'll mark out my chest line, my bust line, my waistline, my hip line and the length of the dress. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of the paper and I will draw a straight line. And then from here, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder measurements and then I'll mark it on the chest line as well and I'll connect, and then I'll go down by 1 inch and then mark 3 inch for my neck width and connect, drawing the shoulder line. Then here I'm going to divide this line by 2 and I'll go in by half an inch. While on the chest line, I'm going to mark quarter of my bust measurement plus 1.5 inch sewing allowance. And I'll use a French curve to connect these 3 points. And then from here, I'm going to be drawing the neckline of this dress. So I'm going to be going in by 0.5 inch. And then from that point, I'm going to create a slant like so. And then I'm going to be marking 6 inches away from the shoulder line. And then I'll use a French curve to connect it all the way to about 1 inch below the chest line. And then from here for the back, I'm going to be going down by 1.5 inch and I'll use a French curve to connect it to the neck width. I'm also going to be adding 0.5 inch sewing allowance on the shoulder line. Then from this point also, I'm going to be marking out my armhole for the back. And then here I'm going to be marking half of my nipple to nipple measurements and then I'll connect it to the waistline. And then on this waistline, I'm going to mark 0.5 inch on both sides and then I'll go down by 1 inch from the bust line and I'll connect, drawing the darts. Then after here, on the waistline, I'm going to mark quarter of my waist measurement plus the darts plus 1.5 inch sewing allowance. And then I'll connect it all the way to the chest line. While on the hip line, I'm going to be marking quarter of my hip measurements plus 1.5 inch sewing allowance and then I will connect. Then while on the length of the dress, I'm going to be minusing 1.5 inch from whatever we have on the hip line and then I'll mark it and connect it to the hip line. Then from this point, I'm going to be cutting it. First, I'm going to be cutting the back pattern. And then after cutting it, I'm going to keep it aside. Then from here, I'm going to be cutting the front. And then for the front, I'm going to be removing the zipper allowance that we added. And I'm also going to remove the neckline for the back and as well as the armhole for the back. And then here we have our front pattern. All we have to do now is to go down by 2.75 from the chest line. And then I'm going to be marking 1.5 inch away from the nipple points. And I'll connect it to the side seam. And then I'll mark 0.5 inch on both sides and I'll connect it, drawing the bust dart. So by the time you take this bust dart, you observe that the side seam, the half length is going to be reduced by 1 inch and the side seam will not be even. We are going to be rectifying this while cutting. And then for the back, I'm going to be removing 1 inch from the half length because when we are taking the dart for the front, it's going to be reduced by 1 inch. Then also, I don't want any darts on the back pattern, so I'm going to be removing the 1 inch that we added earlier. Then I'll mark 1 inch away from the side seam. And then finally, I'm going to be going up by 0.5 inch. And this is me just trying to reduce any form of bulkiness at the back. Then I'll connect it and cut it off. And then for the skirt part of this dress, I'm going to be cutting it off like this. And then I'll go in by 1 inch because I won't be using any dart here. And then this will be the back pattern. While for the front pattern, I will just cut off the zipper allowance, and that will be all for the front pattern. So this is the fabric that I use for this dress. I have 4 yards here. Now I'm going to place the front pattern on the fabric, and I'll be cutting like so. Just pay attention to how I'm cutting it. I'm adding allowance to the neckline and to the down parts of the bodies. And then also for the bust darts, by the time we take the bust darts, the side seam will not be equal. So I'm just trying to add extra allowance at that point, so that by the time we take the bust darts, that place will be even. So I've also gone ahead to cut for the back. I've also cut for the skirt part of the dress, both for the front and for the back. Then after cutting, also make sure you cut the lining for the dress. Then when you're done cutting, this is what the front should look like. So now what we are going to do is to take the darts on the fabric. So if you have a tracing wheel, you can just place the pattern paper on the fabric and trace it on the fabric. But right now I don't have a tracing wheel, so I'm just going to be drawing back the darts on the fabric. So take note that I'm using the pattern as a guide when tracing out the darts. So by the time you're done tracing it out, you're going to take the darts on the lining and on the fabric. When you're done, this is what it should look like. So if you observe, the side seam is not equal. So here we are going to cut off the excess. So after doing that, I'm going to place the lining on the fabric like so, and I'm going to sew around the neckline using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So after sewing, I'm going to notch it, and then I'll turn it to the right side and I'll understitch it, turning the allowance to the lining. By the time you're done, this is what you should look like. So now I'm going to turn it to the wrong side, and then I'm going to be joining the lining to the fabric at the side seam using 0.25 sewing allowance. Then after sewing, this is what it should look like. So for the back, I'm going to be doing the same thing that we did in front. And since there's no darts at the back, I'm just going to go straight to closing the neckline with the lining. So you're going to sew 1/2 inch. You notch it, you turn it to the right side and understitch it. And then after understitching it, you're going to sew on the zipper side and on the side seam. Then for the skirt part of the dress, I'm also going to do the same thing. I'm going to join the lining to the fabric at the hemline, turn it to the right side, understitch it, and then turn it to the wrong side back again, and you close the side seam using 0.25 sewing allowance. By the time you're done, this is what it should look like. I'm also going to do the same thing for the back as well, closing the zipper line and the side seam alongside the hemline. So now I'm going to be joining the back to the front at the shoulder line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange the lining of the back and front together and the fabric of the back and front together like so, and also using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So by the time you're done, this is what it should look like. So now the next thing to do now is to join the bodice to the skirt part of the dress. So I'm going to be using 0.5 inch sewing allowance, and I'm going to be joining it like so. So I'm going to do the same thing for the back as well. And by the time you're done, this is what it should look like. So from this point now, I'm going to be joining the back to the front, from the waistline all the way to the armhole. Then after joining it, the next thing to do now is to add the side ruffles to the dress. So in order to do that, I'm going to be measuring from the waistline all the way to the hemline. So right now I have 22 inches. So I'm going to be times this 22 inches by 2, that is 44 inches. So I'm going to be cutting a fabric that is 44 and above inches long, depending on how full you want it to be. While the length of it is also depending on how long you want. Like right now, the length of it is 9 inches. So after cutting it, I'm going to run a gather stitch through, and then I'll gather it, making sure that I get back that 22 inches. So after gathering it, I'm going to be placing the side ruffles to the dress, like so. So you either sew it first and then you close it with the other one, or you close everything at once. So after you're done, this is what it should look like. I'm also going to do the same thing on the other side of the dress. So by the time you're done with that, the next thing to do is to add the zip to this dress at the back. So after adding the zip, this is what it should look like. Finally, all we have to do now is to add the sleeve to this dress. So in order to do that, I'm going to measure around the armhole. I have 18 inches. So now I'm going to be folding my fabric into 2, and then I'll fold it further. So that means I have 4 pieces arranged like so. And then from this point, I'm going to be dividing my 18 inches by 6 because I'm about to draft a full circle. So after dividing it by 6, I'm going to times whatever I get by 2 or 3, depending on how full I want the sleeve to be. If you don't have enough fabric, you can times it by 2, but I'm timesing it by 3, that is 9 inches. So I'm marking 9 inches from that point down. Also, if you don't want a balloon sleeve, you can use a straight puff sleeve, which is perfect as well. And then from this point, after marking my 9 inches, I'm going to be marking the length of the sleeve. So I want the sleeve to be about 8 inches long. I'm going to be adding 4 inches to it so that I can be able to have enough volume. And then that is 12 inches in all. So I'm going to be marking 12 inches on the fabric. So instead of marking 12 inches now, I'm going to be adding 12 to the 9 inches. And that means I have about 21 inches. So I'm going to be marking 21 inches around it. So I've also gone ahead to cut for the second sleeve. And after doing that, I've gone ahead to weave the upside and the down part. And after weaving for the down part, I closed it using 0.75 inch sewing allowance, creating a hole that we are going to pass the elastic through. While on the upside, I run a gather stitch around it, and then I will gather it at the up. Then after gathering it, I'm going to measure around it, making sure that I get back the 18 inches so that I'll be able to attach it to the bodice. When you're done gathering it, you're going to attach it using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. By the time I was done, I went ahead to cut the elastic for the down part of the sleeve. So the length of this elastic should be equal to your sleeve width. So the width of my sleeve is 9 inches plus 2 inches sewing allowance, that is 11. So the length of the elastic is 11 inches. So I'm going to be using a bobbin pin to pass the elastic through the hole that we created earlier. By the time you come to the other side, you are going to join both ends of the elastic together. And then after joining it, you're going to close the hole that we left opened earlier. And that will be all for today's video. If you did enjoy this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thank you.